Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Kartik month special. A few days back, we were looking at chapter 22 of Canto 10, which talks about Lord Krishna stealing the garments of the unmarried gopis. Now, we also discussed that sometimes this particular pastime is difficult for us to comprehend. But if you understand it in the right light, then everything becomes crystal clear. There's nothing titillating about this pastime. There is nothing demeaning about this pastime. So the acharyas say that if we view the Lord's pastimes through material senses and through material heart, then we will misunderstand these pastimes. So what is it that these gopis have done for Krishna? Krishna says, if you have truly surrendered to me, your tan, mana, and dhan have to be given to him. So that is what the gopis do. Their man was already given to him because in their mind they were thinking about Krishna all the time. And they would do anything to have Krishna as their husband. So all three have to be given to the Lord. The tana means your body, mana means your mind, dhana means your wealth. There is the same, no? That everything has to be finally offered to Krishna. I was listening to a pastime from the lips of another devotee yesterday. And one day Narada Muni met a lady who was a great devotee of Krishna. Everything she did and said, she would say, my dear Lord, this is for you. My dear Lord, this is for you. My dear Lord, this is for you. So, so when she was throwing out garbage, she would say, my dear Lord, this is for you. So Narada Muni came and he said, exactly what kind of a devotee are you? You know, even when you're throwing out garbage, you're saying, my dear Lord, this is for you. So he slaps her and says, never ever do this again. You know, we are supposed to offer the best of our best to Krishna. And here, even reject things that we throw away, you're saying, my dear Lord, this is for you. This also belongs to you. And she said, I don't know what to do, but everything I have to offer to Krishna. So he thinks he has taught her a nice, proper lesson. And he goes back to Vaikuntha and he meets Lord Narayana. And Narada Muni tells him about this devotee, so-called devotee of his. He says, can't you teach her a few things because she's doing such objectionable things in the name of loving you? And Narada Muni observes that Narayana is sitting with his hand on his cheeks. He asks, why, what happened to you, my dear Lord? And he said, well, you slapped me. And Narada Muni said, I slapped you. I didn't slap you. How could I ever slap you? How could you accuse me of doing such a horrible thing? Then Narayana tells him, well, you slapped that lady. And when you slapped her, she said, Krishna, this is for you. So Krishna accepts whatever his devotees give him out of pure love. So Narada Muni understood that, you know, Krishna didn't see this devotee as being imperfect. It's like everything she was doing, she was offering to Krishna. So she was saying, the slap that I received is a gift from Krishna. My dear Krishna, thank you so much. This is also, I will give it to you. So ultimately the slap landed on the Lord's face. And Narada Muni understood that there are certain devotees who love the Lord so much that he's not capable of understanding their love. So such is the position of the gopis that it is not possible for us to understand how much love they have in their hearts for Krishna. So this This is called complete surrender. What is it that they were hiding from Krishna? Krishna took all their garments and hung it on the trees, and then later on he puts it on his shoulder. They were hiding their love for Krishna from Krishna, right? They were not open about it. They didn't express to the Lord, such is our love for you in our heart. They were too shy to express this. So even your love for Krishna cannot be hidden from Krishna. So that's the beauty of the gopis' love for him. They had already surrendered to Krishna, but they were keeping it a secret. You can't keep anything a secret from the Supreme Lord, not even your love. If you love the Lord, it's meant to be expressed. So these leelas, we cannot look at it with material eyes. We have to look at it through our spiritual senses. So externally, these leelas may be very disturbing. You think Krishna is not behaving properly with the gopis. But Krishna is not a common, ordinary personality. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He already knows what's in your heart. And lastly, because the gopis had such an intense desire to marry the Lord, to have him as their husband, in Vedic culture, only a husband is allowed to see his wife naked. So intrinsically, Krishna had already fulfilled that desire. So intrinsically, Krishna said, I'm already yours. So there are so many deep layers of understanding of this particular pastime, right? To get Krishna as your husband is not a small thing. So the stealing of the garments was the last barrier between the gopis and Krishna. They had to be willing to give up even their so-called shyness, because that was based on the bodily platform. Yes, that is why when the Lord returns their clothes to them, he says, my dear gopis, I have accepted your desire. And your desire will be fulfilled. Your desire is very worthy, and therefore it will be fulfilled. So keep in mind that this is the potency of love for the Lord, pure love for the Lord. So the Lord is expressing his own sentiments about their desire in that one shloka. So everything that we hear about the pastimes of the Lord, we need to understand it in this particular manner. So there is always going to be a rasa between the Lord and his devotees. So there can be no secrets between them in a relationship. So this leads us to the next pastime, which again may seem a little bewildering. So we're going to go into chapter number 23 of Canto 10, where the Lord, so after the Gopi Vastraharan Leela, the Lord has glorified the trees. You remember how great the trees are, how selfless the trees are. No matter what happens, they're ready to serve others. Like this, the Lord has glorified the trees. And the 22nd chapter ends with the boys wandering deeper into the forest, and suddenly the boys are hungry. They had not brought their prasadam that day. And therefore, chapter 23 begins with the boys expressing that, Hey Rama, Hey Krishna, you have killed so many demons. Both of you have exhibited so much prowess. We are being driven by this demon hunger. We are being harassed by this demon called hunger. So just like you conquered those demons, you have to do something about this demon called hunger. So the Lord smiles, because the Lord is always looking to satisfy and please his devotees as much as the devotees are trying to please the Lord. The Lord is always reciprocating. You see, that's the beauty of the relationship between the lover and the beloved. At that time, the Lord tells the boys, there are some Yajnik Brahmanas who are well versed in Vedic scriptures. They are performing this Angirasa sacrifice, and they're doing it because they wanted to go to the heavenly planets. They're looking for a promotion from earthly planets to Svargaloka or beyond. So when you go there, just ask them for some prasadam. And as you do that, you tell them that my older brother Balaram is here. Also tell them I am here. And then tell them that we have sent you to request this prasad. So that's what the boys do. They obey the Lord. The instruction of the Lord was, inform the Brahmanas who are performing these yajnas that Krishna and Balaram are here, and they have sent us to procure some prasadam. So the boys approach the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are very, very busy with their yajnas. And the boys are so sweet. They glorify the Brahmanas, saying, you are great people, you are like devatas on earth. But we have actually been sent by Krishna and Balaram. And they have given us an instruction. So, can we please express to you, what is it that the Lord has instructed us? They tell the Brahmanas, very close by Krishna and Balaram are tending their cows. They are very hungry. And they have requested for some food. So please satisfy their desire and offer them some food. Because not only are they hungry, we are also hungry. So it is said that when these yajnas are performed, ideally you don't interrupt the yajna. But there are sections in the yajna when you can take a natural break and then come back to continuing to perform the yajna. So the Brahmanas were so busy in performing their yajna, they did not want to be disturbed. They did not want their yajna to be interrupted. They were performing yajna to please the yajna purusha. Yet the yajna purusha was just a few meters away from them. That person for whom they were performing the yajna for his pleasure was right there. But they were so entangled in their ritualistic performance of this yajna, they ignored the boys' request. They didn't say, yes, thank you for coming here. We heard you. We're busy. Please come back later. No, they just ignored. So Shukadev Goswami writes in one of the shlokas, they failed to recognize that Lord Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, that he is the manifestation of the Supreme Lord himself. Because they were so caught up in false identification with their body, they did not show the Lord proper respect. One day, Sri Ramanujacharya wanted to, in his travels, he wanted to go visit a particular place, and he knew one of his devotees or disciples was there. So he sends his other disciples to let that other disciple know that he was coming into town. So this disciple happened to be a very wealthy disciple. So he was so overjoyed to hear that his spiritual master was coming. And he made all kinds of elaborate arrangements and preparations, from housing to pandal to prasadam, everything. He was just running around here, running around there, trying to make arrangements. So the other disciples come back to Ramanujacharya. And Ramanujacharya asks them, so, what is the news? And the disciples of Ramanuja looked a little sad and dejected. He said, why, what happened? He said, the disciples that Ramanujacharya had sent to give them word that he is coming, they tell Ramanujacharya he was so busy in getting ready for you that he did not once ask us, do we want prasadam? Are we okay? So hearing this, Ramanujacharya got very, very upset. See, you can't separate the Lord from his devotees. You can't separate the disciples from their spiritual master. You can't say, I will only respect my spiritual master and not my God brothers and God sisters, because my spiritual master is more important to me. Similarly here, not only did they disrespect the Lord by not acknowledging that he was there close by, they even disrespected his greatest devotees by not even acknowledging them. This is a very dangerous, slippery slope. We should honor the devotees of the Lord as much as we honor the Lord. As a matter of fact, we should honor the devotees more than we honor the Lord, because the great devotees of the Lord are so dear to the Lord. So Ramanujacharya also decides that it's not worth it to go stay in this disciple's house. So when he visits, he stays in another disciple's house who's very poor, who did not have much, who could not make many arrangements. But still, Ramanujacharya was very pleased with his devotion, in the sense that the devotee understands that you can't distinguish between guru and disciple, you as much as you can't distinguish between the Lord and his devotees. So when the Brahmanas failed to give a response to the Gopals, to the young boys, not a yes, not a no, the boys were already very hungry. They were so dejected. So they go back to Krishna and Balaram and tell them what had happened. And the Lord simply smiled. He laughed. He tells them, I want you to do something this time. You go back, but this time you go approach the wives. And the boys would have said, wait a minute, we were just rejected by the husbands. They didn't even acknowledge our presence. The Lord said, no, don't worry. You just, this time you go, make the same request and make the same announcement to the wives. Tell the wives of the Brahmanas that I have come here with Lord Sankarshana. They will certainly give you all the food that you want, for they are most affectionate toward me, and indeed with their intelligence reside in me alone. So the Lord, what did the Lord say? The Lord said, don't worry. The wives of the Brahmanas are my devotees. They will not send you back empty-handed. Why? Because they have so much love and affection for me. So the boys are obedient again. They go back into the forest. They go to where the wives are, who are all busy cooking. They are nicely dressed. So they bow down to this Brahmana ladies, and the boys are addressing them with all humility. They glorify them, saying, "You are the wives of these great Brahmanas. We've been sent by Lord Krishna, who's not too far off from here." You see, Krishna has traveled a long way into the forest, along with his older brother, Lord Balaram. They are busy tending cows. He is hungry. We are also hungry. Please arrange for something. So as much as the Brahmanas ignored the presence of the boys, the wives did the exact opposite. The minute they heard the word Krishna, that's it. They had never seen Krishna. They had heard about Krishna's pastimes. Just by hearing about the Lord's Leelas, their mind was so attracted to Krishna. So when you hear that someone that you are very attracted to has come close by, now obviously you're going to be in a state of excitement. So immediately, without thinking twice, the wives pack up different types of foods. And just as Parikshit Maharaj uses this wonderful analogy, just as rivers are rushing towards the sea, the wives are rushing out of the house, heading towards Krishna, which is where all of us should be headed, actually. We all should be heading towards Krishna, just like the rivers naturally flow towards the sea, empty themselves into the sea. So the ladies all packed up everything and they rushed into the forest. And what happened as they were trying to leave their homes? Their husbands, their brothers, their sons, and other relatives tried to stop them. You see, the Brahmanas and their family members were so afraid of Kamsa. They had already heard that Krishna and Balaram had been killing demons. They were afraid if Kamsa ever found out that they themselves were associating with Krishna and Balaram, that it would not be a good situation for them. Therefore, out of fear, they were trying to prevent the wives from going to see Krishna and Balaram. But you see, a real devotee does not have any fear. So the wives were not thinking, what if Kamsa finds out that we did this? They did not care. It's because they heard so much about the transcendental qualities of the Lord. They not only wanted to see the Lord, they wanted to have an opportunity to serve him. Whereas the Brahmanas, who had every opportunity to get up and go see the Lord and offer their obeisances and offer their services to the Lord, did not bother to do that. Although they were so well versed in scriptures. So it is not your intelligence or your IQ or your level of learnedness that attracts Krishna's mercy. It's your simplicity. It's your love for Krishna that attracts his attention. So the wives disregarded the instructions of their seniors and the men and rushed out. to see Krishna. And what do they see? They see Krishna walking slowly with some of the cowherd boys. And there is a beautiful shloka where Shukadeva Goswami is describing what is it that they are seeing. Shyamam hiranya paridhim vanamalya barha dhatu pravala natavesham anavratam se vinyasta hastam itarena dhunanam abjam karnotpalalaka kapola mukhabjahasam. So Shukadeva Goswami describes what is it that the wives are seeing. His complexion was dark blue and his garment golden, wearing a peacock feather, colored minerals, sprigs of flower buds, and a garland of forest flowers and leaves. He was dressed just like a dramatic dancer. He rested one hand upon the shoulder of a friend, and with the other twirled a lotus. Lilies grazed his ears. His hair hung down over his cheeks, and his lotus-like face was smiling. So this was their first darshan of Krishna. And this is what they see. Right? This beautiful sight of the Lord leaning his arm on the shoulders of one of the cowherd boys. And with his left hand, he was twirling a lotus. And he was smiling. So Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, for a long time, these Brahmana ladies had heard about Krishna. And they had fallen in love with him. And the more they heard, it was like decoration for their ears to hear about the glories of the Supreme Lord. Indeed, Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, their minds were always absorbed in him. And now, so long they have been hearing about Krishna with their ears. Now with their eyes, they were drinking in this beautiful form of the Lord. And through their eyes, Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, they forced the Lord to be seated within their hearts. And in their hearts, in their mind's eye, they were embracing the Lord for a long time. Because they were experiencing such separation from him, they had heard about him, heard about his pastimes, heard about his glories, but they had not seen him. So that pain of separation was finally consummated when they actually saw the Lord. And because Krishna knows everything that is in one's mind, he understood how these Brahmanas' wives had abandoned their husbands, their fathers, their brothers, their in-laws, simply to come and see him. They knew that perhaps they had made a terrible mistake, externally speaking, abandoning family to go see Krishna. Because that's all they cared about. So Krishna speaks to them and he tells them, I welcome you all, ladies who've come here. Why don't you all sit down and make yourself comfortable? And the Lord is asking them, what can I do for you? Is there anything that I can help you with or serve you, please you? And then Krishna tells the wives, that you have come to see me here is most appropriate. You have so much devotion in your heart for me that I have become so dear to you. So more important than your own breath, than your own intelligence, than your own children, than your own family members, I have become most dear to you. Then Krishna utters words that shatters their hearts. Krishna says, I approve of what you've done, but now I'm going to request you to go back to your husbands, because the yajna is not complete until the wife is seated beside the husband. They are all householders, so they need your assistance to finish their respective sacrifices. So please go back. Now that you've seen me, you've satisfied your desire to come and see me. You offered services to me by bringing these nice bhoga items. I'm the one who enjoys them, so thank you very much. Now you may return. So the wife said, why are you speaking such cruel words to us? You are known to reciprocate with your devotees. Now that we have taken darshan of your lotus feet, we want to continue to serve you in whatever way we can. Maybe we can carry the garlands of the tulsi leaves that may have fallen at your lotus feet. We have abandoned our families. We're ready to give up everything for you. So why are you sending us back? After you achieve Krishna consciousness, why do you want to go back to anything mundane? Right? You don't want to give up what you really desire, your final goal, your final destination. And then the wives tell Krishna, even if you send us back, they'll not accept us back, because we rejected them in order to serve you. And because we are women, and since we disobeyed them, they are not going to want to give us shelter anymore. Only you can give us shelter, my dear Lord. That is why we have thrown ourselves at your lotus feet. We don't have any other destination, because they may see us as their enemies now. So just grant us the desire that we are seeking. We want to be with you. To which the Lord responds and says, don't worry. Nobody is your enemy. They will welcome you with open arms. I promise you that, because I have already advised them of the situation. When the Lord says, I have personally advised them of the situation, it means through their hearts, He has revealed to them that their wives are great devotees. You going back is not going to be an issue. As a matter of fact, if you go back, Krishna tells them, even the demigods will approve of you going back and serving with your husbands very nicely. Then Krishna tells them, even if you want to stay with me, the people, the general public, would not appreciate it. Krishna says, for you to remain in my bodily association would certainly not please people in this world, nor would it be the best way for you to increase your love for me. Krishna says, don't think by being in my physical association, your love for me will just keep increasing. That is the wrong concept. So Krishna says, you go back, but you fix your minds on me. And very soon, Krishna promises them, you will come back to me. So there is a nice shloka, a nice instruction for all of us. The shloka 33 of chapter 23, where Krishna gives them instructions. Shravanad darshanad dhyanan mai bhavo nikirtanat natatha samnikarshena pradiyat tato grahan. Here Krishna is telling them, it is by hearing about me, seeing my deity form, meditating upon me, and chanting my name and glories that love for me develops. Not by physical proximity. Therefore, please go back to your homes. Krishna is saying one develops love for him by thinking about him, by meditating upon him, by chanting his names and glories, by worshipping him in his deity form, and by hearing about him. Krishna says this is how you develop love for me, not simply by being in physical proximity. So this is how Krishna is instructing us on how we can develop love for him. See, after all, the Brahmanas' wives had developed intense love for the Lord simply by hearing about his pastimes. And the Lord is saying, well, you can go back and do the same thing. You can worship me. You can chant my name. You can chant my glories. You can hear about me. And this way your love for me will intensify. And when your love for me reaches that stage of bhava and ultimately prema, you will come back to me. So the devotees of the Lord were very obedient. The wives went back to their husbands. So the first 12 verses contrasts the indifference of the Brahmanas to the love that the Brahmanas' wives, who were much simpler than them and perhaps not as materially intelligent as their husbands, they understood the ultimate philosophy. So the Brahmanas' indifference contrasted with the wives' love for the Lord, and now the Brahmanas' remorse for a missed opportunity. So as the wives come back, one of the wives was forcibly detained by her husband, and therefore she could not go and see Krishna. But what do all the other wives do? They describe Krishna to her. They tell her what Krishna had said, the instructions that he had given. Just hearing what the other wives had seen and heard from Krishna, she just gives up her body. She just experiences so much ecstasy. She goes back to the spiritual world. So while the Lord and his friends are enjoying the bhoga prepared for the Lord by the wives, in the meantime, the Brahmanas were cursing themselves. And they say, to hell with our threefold birth. What is this threefold birth? The first birth is their physical birth. Their parents, their biological parents. Their second birth is the Upanayanam ceremony, when they get the Gayatri mantra. The third birth is called the Yajnik birth, that gives them the rights and authority to perform this yajna. So the Brahmanas are cursing themselves, saying, what is the point of us having all these births? We took so many vows for celibacy, so many vows for so much intensive learning of the scriptures. What is the point of being experts in how to do these yajnas? Ultimately, we have been condemned. We didn't recognize the Lord. We had become inimical to the Lord because we were so caught up in our rituals. So again, this is a very important instruction for us. Sometimes we get caught up with rituals and forget the Lord himself. We are more focused on performing the ritual than learning to love the Supreme Lord. That is a disaster for us. So the Brahmanas were saying, Maya Devi has such a tight control on us. She gave us all of this knowledge, and in the process, we forgot a lot. We are supposed to be the gurus for all of society, and we ourselves got bewildered. So like these, the Brahmanas are lamenting. They are telling, look how much love our wives have for Lord Krishna. He is the spiritual master of the entire universe, and we are supposed to be the spiritual master of those people in the material world, and we didn't know this basic fact. Because of their intense love that they developed for Krishna, certainly they're going to go back to him. They are not, they didn't have the Upanayanam ceremony. They didn't live like brahmacharis in the Guru's house, serving Guru. They don't know anything about these rituals. How is it that they have developed such love for the Lord, such devotion for the Lord? So they were also hearing the Vedic hymns being chanted very nicely every day by their husbands. They were not attracted by the Vedic hymns. What were they attracted by? By hearing the pastimes of the Lord, by hearing the holy names of the Lord. So yes, the Vedic hymns can be very flowery, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. It can really attract one's minds. But there's no point in being an excellent reciter of Vedic hymns if you've not developed the love for the Lord. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedya. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to discover who is behind them, which is the Supreme Lord. And so the Brahmanas are cursing themselves that they didn't have an iota of bhakti for the Lord. That they had become so proud that they were performing this yajna not to get Krishna, but to go to the upper planetary systems. And therefore, our wives have revealed to us what the true purpose of life is, which we had somehow forgotten because we became so proud of our position in society. We became so proud of our learnings. We became so proud of our exclusivity in performing these yajnas. They got darshan of the Supreme Lord. So, who gets the benediction ultimately? They performed all these austerities, all these sacrifices. Ultimately, the Brahmanas' wives did the same thing that the gopis did. They surrendered to them. So all of these yogic practices, essentially the Brahmanas were these karmakandis, looking for a material benefit. So they curse themselves, they curse their own foolishness. So from a distance, they are thinking, is it the right time to go into the forest and beg the forgiveness of the Lord? Maybe somehow we can make amends for the offense that we've committed. It's an offense. It's not a sin. And they decide, no, Kamsa is still around. So we'll offer our obeisance from here itself. So after glorifying their wife's bhakti, they still had fear in their hearts. They were not transformed to go and see the Lord. They wanted to, but fear overcame them. And therefore they decide not to go to see the Supreme Lord. So you can understand the difference between a highly learned class of people versus the wives who are very simple. Yeah. One day Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and he sees some Vedic Brahmanas come. He invites them to sit with him. These great Pandits. And he asks them, can you tell me about the Supreme Lord? That's all, very simple question. Prabhupada asked these two Purohits. Can you tell me about the Supreme Lord? And they said, Swamiji, you asked such a difficult question. We have to go into the depths of the Vedic scriptures to give you the answer to this question. Prabhupada just laughed. That time a Gurukul was set up in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada called two Gurukul boys. He asked them the same question that he asked the Pandits. Can you tell me about the Supreme Lord? And they say, yeah, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna and we are all his servants. Bas. End of story, end of philosophy. So those who are very learned in the scriptures may not be able to answer a simple question as, who is the Supreme Lord? Can you tell me about him? Similarly, Prabhupada used to observe Shyamasundara's daughter called Saraswati, who was always somehow or the other hanging around Prabhupada all the time. She was just 4 or 5 years old, even in Vrindavan. She used to preach and Prabhupada really appreciated her preaching skills. You know how young children are so innocent and so brave and so bold. This Saraswati, Malati and Shyamsundar Prabhu's daughter, young child, American child, not an Indian-born child. She would go up to everyone and she would tell them, do you know who is Krishna? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and therefore you should chant his names. So Prabhupada was just astounded at how even a young child can preach. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, no? Bhakto sime sakacheti rahasyam hyetaduttamam. Only the bhakta can understand who is the Supreme Lord. So when the Lord wants to speak the Bhagavad Gita, he didn't select a great Vedantist to speak the Bhagavad Gita. Who does he select to speak the Bhagavad Gita? His devotee. So he chose his devotee Arjuna to speak the greatest of truth. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. The same instructions Krishna is giving Arjuna also. So what is the point of trying to reach heaven when the creator of heaven is standing right there before you and you don't want to go see him? So such is the calamity of the Brahmanas, juxtaposed against the wives' love for Krishna. So we should never make the mistake of getting attached to rituals. We should get attached to Krishna. So I'll just conclude with some Acharya's commentary. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these Brahmanas represent the pride of performance of karmic activities. The false pride that we get when we learn something or we've conquered some shlokas, etc. This kind of thing can lead to a great deal of pride. So the Brahmanas represent the pride of performance of karmakanda rituals. And it is said in the Garga Samhita that these wives were actually the wives of the Saptarishis in their previous incarnations. Somehow or the other, they got the good opportunity to serve the Supreme Lord here. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Krishna Samhita that the Brahmanas represent indifference to Krishna caused by identity with Varnashrama or an absorption in Karmakanda rituals. So every ashram should be looking to get closer and closer to Krishna. So the purpose of the 4 Varnas and the 4 ashramas is to help us enhance our devotion to Krishna and not to get caught up in the unnecessary details. So we cannot and should not and never ever develop this kind of indifference to Krishna. Yeah. So it's not just physically there, Krishna was there. Any opportunity that we have to serve Krishna, we should grab it. Because when we don't take the opportunity to serve Krishna, that is indifference. That's an offense. So very rarely will you have an opportunity to serve Krishna and his devotees. So when we reject that service, that is indifference. When you're indifferent to Krishna, how can you develop and claim that you have love for him? So in a way, you could say being good and doing good is not good enough. Running towards Krishna and running towards his devotees and serving his devotees very nicely is the best indicator that you have love and affection for Krishna. So worldly things should not distract you from Krishna. Yes, we may have a lot of household responsibilities. The genuine, pure devotee of the Lord will be ready to give up their householder responsibilities to take up sevas for Krishna, which is what the wives did. They had so many responsibilities at home. The minute they heard that they had an opportunity to serve Krishna, they dropped everything. They did not care for criticism of not doing their material duty. They were anxious to prioritize their spiritual duties. So this is a very important pastime for devotees to understand what it means to serve Krishna. Sevas come in so many disguises. You must grab them. You must be ready to drop everything on the material front to serve Krishna. Then you can attract Krishna's mercy. So such is the love that the gopis had for Krishna. Such is the love that the Brahmanas' wives had for Krishna. That Krishna acknowledges their love and tells them, the fact that you dropped all your household responsibilities and came running to serve me, I approve of. Yes. So anytime we get an opportunity to do seva, my request is to take it up. Don't deny Krishna. Don't be indifferent to Krishna. Take up that seva, even if it means temporary inconveniences on the family front. We should never deny Krishna his service. After all, we are chanting the holy names of the Lord so that we have an opportunity to serve him. And when we get the service, we think, oh my God, this service is going to inconvenience me at home. That is not the mood of a devotee. Skrantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.